Welcome back to That 70s Card Show. I'm your host, John Keating, and I thank you for joining me as I take a look back at the cards and the culture of the very colorful 1970s. We'll revisit a more simple time in our hobby by taking a deep dive into the sets and the stats with a generous amount of dad facts sprinkled in. That 70s Card Show is currently sponsored by nobody. If you have a comment or suggestion, I urge you to drop me a line at that70scardshow@gmail.com, at 70s Card on Twitter, or on YouTube, that 70s Card Show. Leave a comment right there. So this is episode 46, and we are going to talk a little old school, new school. Obviously, I'm old school, and we'll get to the gist of that in a minute. Last week's episode, I mentioned and shouted out a couple of the content creators that I enjoy listening to, and you try to do you try to do a good thing, and your brain just doesn't work sometimes. I left out a couple of content creators who are always on the forefront of my mind, and I enjoy their content immensely. I enjoy their collections immensely. So I want to run down a few that I missed last week, regrettably. And again, as soon as I hit the stop button, I done smacked myself upside the head, and kind of wondered what and why I was thinking. And again, true regret. So let's talk a little bit about a couple of these folks. Sports Card Detour on YouTube. That is Diego, who is a homeboy of mine on the other side of the Delaware River. Diego, his enthusiasm is amazing. He has the best opening jingle of any YouTube content creator I've heard or seen. And again, his enthusiasm is contagious. He does a lot of videos pretty much every day. He's spitting something out. So I really appreciate what Diego does. I told Diego that I forgot to shout him out. He told me not to shout him out, but I'm shouting him out anyway. Moving on down the list, Peeps. Peeps, I kind of recently discovered his YouTube channel is Peeps, oddly enough, Pepps. Peeps has a humor that I guess it's what I would like my humor to be. So when I listen to Peeps is his content. I really, man, I wish I would have thought of that angle. I wish I would have used that effect. I wish I were that witty and clever on the fly. So Peeps, well done. Your humor and your originality are unrivaled. Don's Field of Dreams. Now, Don, he's a Yinzer from the other side of Pennsylvania, the west coast of Pennsylvania, and Don has a admirable collection. And Don is a contemporary of mine. We're close in age, and I enjoy his cards. I enjoy his personality, and I enjoy his take on things. Don swims in some pretty popular circles over there. He's got a great set of content creators that he hangs with, and I really enjoy watching his stuff. And I look forward to his stuff. And I eat it up every time he puts it out there. So Don, thank you for that. Dean Gerhart, another Yinzer. He does Dean Gerhart. Yeah, I collect it all on YouTube, and he sure does. He's got everything. Dean, I've mentioned before on the show, he's just love his stuff, love his collection. He is he's well, Dean, you're crazy, because Dean, I talk about sets that I'm working on. Dean says, well, this will be for my third 1970 set or my second 1968 set, and I just giggle, because I'm, when you struggle to complete those sets like I have been, Dean is working on his second and third sets of some really, really great sets. Dean loves the old stuff. I think he's working on the, either the 50 or the 49 Bowmans at this point. So, and he's out there hunting constantly. He's picking up stuff at his card shop. He's picking up stuff at shows and flea markets. And really, interestingly, is him, I think, and Don this past weekend took a field trip together to Strongsville, Ohio. So I really love the camaraderie that those two have shown each other, and I really admire the relationship they have as well as the collections they have. So keep up the good work there, men. And of course, Chris Stories in Cardboard. He is another one, Stories in Cardboard on YouTube. Chris tells some in-depth stories and has some great videos of a lot of real true vintage stuff, whether it's hockey or basketball or um, football, baseball, whatever. He brings it every episode. Very knowledgeable. Has a great way of explaining. Has a just a real good vibe about him. And again, I really enjoy his content as well. So as I go along in life here, I will try to highlight those um, creators of content that I admire. It's hard to get to them all, but I really felt bad about skipping those four in my shout outs last week because they really have an influence on me, and I appreciate what they do, how they do it. And the only complaint I have is when they do it because I want more. So I could listen to these guys all the time. So that's that. Let's talk a little bit about last week's episode. We had the old, um, 72 Sunoco stamps that we brought up, and thanks to my friend and Mark in St. Louis, and very popular episode, I guess. A lot of comments on it, and that's what's great about this hobby, right? There's cards, but there's so many different other things, whether they're inserts or giveaways or regionals or food issues. In this case, gas station issued stamps. So much and so many cool things. They don't just need to be baseball cards, but think about these Sunoco stamps where they were stamps. It was, like I said last week, it was the largest football set released to that point, and I would venture to guess it was probably the best action photography up to that point released in any kind of baseball, basketball, football, or hockey set. So a pretty groundbreaking thing there, both in volume. A lot of players, it was their only appearance on nationally issued cards slash stamps. So again, Sunoco, love what you did there. I'm going to show a quick comment from our friend Mark Hoyle up there in the Nuevo England area. He enjoyed the episode, obviously. He remembers it well. He remembers, it says, I remember getting these as a kid. I believe uh, I've only got most of the Pats team set left now. I think the storage lockers you could order from Tops started around 72 or 73. I've got 3 cardboard ones from 73 and a plastic one from 75. We used to laugh when we pulled a fair hooker card when we were kids. And he mentioned Tim Rosovich did some acting after his football career. He popped up on some Charlie's Angels episodes, and he was actually on a lot of interesting television shows and B movies and stuff like that. So good point outs there by Mark. Mark joked also about the gas pumps. Yeah, we had to do math when we pumped gas, and we had to do math with a little infusion of lead. And those lockers, those card killer lockers he talks about, I got one of those last year in a collection I bought, and man, couldn't wait to. Actually, I got a couple of those, and I couldn't wait to throw them out. Yeah, I would have liked to have kept them, but man, they just beat the bejesus out of these cards. So I threw mine away. Smelled like a ashtray as well, so that didn't hurt my decision. All right, so here we are, episode 46, 4-6. I'm looking right at 4-6, and I'm calling this episode Ryan versus Trout. So in our hobby, there are players, whether they're the best players of their time, their half generation, or what, they're still players that define the hobby. We could thank Mickey Mantle for being the godfather of all this. Of course, he wasn't the first player depicted on a card, but certainly popularized and popularized the collecting hobby during his career. A lot of kids wanted to be Mickey Mantle. Played in New York, and I know there's been some arguments or debates about Mantle versus Mays. This isn't what that's about, but I'm just half generational defining players. You can call it generational, but I think that that's too long a period. So I looked at Pete Rose in the when I was coming up. Pete Rose was probably the guy whose rookie card you needed to get in the late '70s. His 1963 Topps was probably the most popular rookie card in the '70s, or at least from my perspective. Never have gotten one yet. Never have owned one. So someday, perhaps. You go on. Ken Griffey Jr. obviously defined the '90s. Mike Trout essentially has done that for the last 10 years as well. Now, in the middle there, a guy whose career spanned the '60s. I shouldn't say span, but started the '60s, spanned the '70s, spanned the '80s, and reached into the '90s is Nolan Ryan. And Nolan Ryan's another one of those guys whose rookie card obviously has blown up for many years now. It's been popular, the '68 Topps with Sir Jerry Koosman with him. And Nolan Ryan certainly wasn't the greatest player, and you'd be hard to find somebody who would say that when Nolan Ryan played in whatever era or decade he played in, he certainly wasn't the best player of that decade. But the longevity, I think, obviously played a big part of it. But even bigger part of that probably was the fact that he played in media capitals such as New York at the beginning of his career. Then he went to Los Angeles in the '70s for most of the '70s, from '72 to '79. Switched over to Houston for most of the '80s, from '80 to '88, and then to the Texas Rangers. Now, obviously a native son of Texas. Texas, massive state, huge baseball following, several teams there. And again, Nolan wasn't the best player of his generation, but he spanned several generations. And in the collecting hobby, his footprint is, unquestionable. So on the field in the '70s, absolutely his most, the best work he did was in the '70s, and that was with the California Angels. California Angels didn't win much. They threatened in '79, but never made it to the World Series. Nolan Ryan had his only 20 win seasons and his only 19 win seasons in the '70s with the Angels. And of course, Nolan Ryan struck out a lot of people in the '70s. So there's seven out of the 8 years he pitched for the Angels, he won the strikeout title. And him and Frank Tanana were a wonderful 1-2 punch. And I guess Tanana was always thought of as the better pitcher, perhaps, but Nolan Ryan just would grind out the innings, lead the league several times in batters faced, and of course the strikeouts. He'd walk a lot of people, but he struck out a lot of people, and a lot of complete games, a lot of shutouts, stuff like that. And of course, 4 no-hitters in the '70s. I think it's May '73, July '73, September '74, and June of 1975. So a lot of strikeout titles, a lot of wins. 4 out of his 7 no-hitters. Of course, he'd pitch a no-hitter in '81 for the Astros and '90 and '91 for the Houston, Texas Rangers. My apologies. So again, Nolan Ryan, huge impact on the hobby. Kind of somewhere he wasn't the best. Like I said, he wasn't the best player of any of his decades that he played in, but his impact on the hobby, massive. The '68 card. I think there's a '68 Milton Bradley. I think there's a '68 Venezuelan. There's all sorts of stuff floating around out there. So I'm going to tell you a little story here. Not so much having to do with the '70s, but just kind of tells you where I am in my collecting mind. So I started buying some collections last year in '21. got back into the hobby, bought some collections, took an ad out in a local newspaper. When I say newspaper, I mean internet bulletin boards because nobody reads the newspapers around here. So community bulletin boards that I kind of got wind of from my wife, who was always getting updates on various neighborhoods, cats up trees, um, bloomers stolen from laundry lines, squirrels stealing cherry pies out of windows, stuff like that. Apple pies, I guess. I don't think they like cherries. So decided to put an ad in there saying I am a collector who buys old collections. Now you have to watch out here because we all know that unless you want a basement full of junk wax, which I have kind of around the corner there, uh, everybody thinks they're 91 Fleers, 88, 89 Donruss, and 87 tops, or I'm sorry, 88 tops are vintage and worth a lot. So you have to watch out. And I carefully worded it saying I'm a vintage collector and put the years down that I kind of collect pre 1980. I'm not a investor. I'm not a business. I just want to add to my collection. So I try to appeal to people that way. I've bought a few collections and I've done all right. A couple collections, a couple $100, and anything that I have duplicates of, I will sell on eBay. And once I've broken even, I kind of stopped keeping track of that stuff. So I've done well, meaning I've broken even at least on all the collections I've purchased, as well as massively increasing my collection, which makes me happy. So it's one chap he lives probably about 3 miles away from me, reached out via email and said he has a lot of Nolan Ryan cards. Okay. And obviously, Nolan Ryan, end of his career, was laden with junk wax cards for sure. But Nolan Ryan, when somebody says Nolan Ryan, your ears kind of perk up because we're all looking for that, Nolan Ryan Holy Grail card. Now, I'd done pretty well in the 70s. I had most of Nolan Ryan's 70s cards, most of his 80s cards, and some of his 90s. A lot of cards out there, but some of the 90s cards as well. So, reached out to the gentleman, and he obviously was reluctant to invite me into his home. So we met at a local watering hole, and he brought in a couple binders and showed me what he had in this crowded bar, and looked through them, and sure enough, there was a 68 Nolan Ryan in a top loader that was inside of a food saver sealed package. So he had taken real good care of this card. And there was every other card that Nolan Ryan has appeared on, other than maybe a few of the 70s OPG and any Venezuelan cards, as well as the Milton Bradley cards. So it was just the one Topps rookie in there. But anyway, a lot of cards. So going to try to share my screen here. So he reaches out to me, and we try to make a deal. So as you can see on this spreadsheet here, I go through my Beckett OPG, and I'm trying to figure out a fair price for all these cards. And there had to have been close to 800, maybe 900 cards in this collection. So I went through best I could. There was a lot of cards that don't show up on a price guide. A lot of promo cards and knockoff cards and stuff like that. So let's go back up to the top. And I tried to price out the cards as best I could, obviously with the regular issue cards, and then jumping back down to tried to suss out all these other regional cards. There's a lot of gaps in this thing because you just can't, box bottoms, wax box bottom panels and stuff like that. You just can't really tell what the price is going to be. So anyway, everything was in there. All the Kellogg's cards from the 70s, all the Mother's Cookies cards. They had them all. So after a day or two, I got the price, and sorry for scrolling, but I came up with a price at, in excellent condition, I came up with a price of about $5,500. Now, this guy had told me that he was told that you know, he got the collection appraised at $11,000. So I said, well, I'm not going to pay $11,000, and I'm not going to pay $5,000 or $5,500, whatever the fair market, I guess, in excellent condition price was for these cards, especially since I had a lot of them anyway. So, you know, figure there's many times when you do a deal when you figure that the deal's done and that's it. So, anyway, he reaches out to me and says, um, my aunt used to work for Tops. So, of course, I was curious there. So, I'm going to try to dig up an email here while I riff. But he says my aunt works for Tops, and she has she gave me some unopened boxes of cards, right? So, of course, I was excited about that as well. And I had him send me over the list. And let's see here, I can't find the list. Anyway, he sent me over the list, and there was about 6 or 7 boxes on there. And I noticed there was he kind of had some prices drawn in on that too. So I asked him. There was a 2011 Tops update, unopened, factory sealed wax box there. So I said, well, I tell you what, if you throw in that 2011 Tops update wax box, I'll give you $5,000 cash for that. And the Nolan Ryans, all the Nolan Ryans and all that stuff. Now, this guy was a dedicated, diehard Nolan Ryan fan, but he's at the point right now where he just wants to get rid of stuff. So he writes me back and says, okay, let's do it tomorrow morning. This was a Thursday night. Let's do it tomorrow morning before I change my mind. So June 11th, I go to the bank, withdraw $5,000 from the bank. The bank thinks I'm, I don't know. It's not something I normally do. I rarely go to the bank at all. So they're wondering why I'm taking out $5,000 at 9:30 in the morning, but whatever, they give me the money. I drive over to my new friend Joe's house with the $5,000. He's got the binders on the table, and he says, "Well, I have this and this as well." So there was a '52 Richie Ashburn, and there was a 1989 Upper Deck Ken Griffey that he also threw in. So we're talking about upwards to 1,000 Nolan Ryan cards, '52 Richie Ashburn, 1989 Upper Deck Ken Griffey Jr., and a 2011 Tops update, unopened, factory sealed box from his aunt up there in Scranton, PA. He takes out a camera. He's a photographer, and he takes out a camera, takes a picture of the cash along with the cards, all that stuff. So I didn't get a picture of that. I wish I had, but deal's done. I run to my car. I didn't walk. I run to my car. I get home, tell my son, my oldest son, who was heavily into ripping cards at that point, and I said, I sent him a picture, right? So I sent him this picture of me holding this 2011 Tops update wax box. He says, we have to open that box right now. And I said, nope, we're not going to open a box. So this is the difference between old school and new school collector. June 11th was the first day of the summer Philly card show in Valley Forge. So I hightail it over to Valley Forge Convention Center, overlooking beautiful Valley Forge National Historical Park. And this is the only time I've ever put a card in a Pelican case in my life. So that wax box was in my little Pelican case. And I have a lot of Pelican cases because I use Pelican cases for work. Anyway, I wheel this case around and I start hitting up dealers to sell this box that obviously has Mike Trout's rookie card in it, perhaps the champagne version. Who knows? I did a little fumbling around on eBay, and prices were all over. There weren't a lot of them out there on eBay, so prices ranged from $7,000 to $16,000 for this box. So I went around to a couple places, and it's amazing when you have that box how much attention people give you. I asked if anybody was buying unopened wax, and The answer was no for the most part, but when I told them what I had, you could see people rising from their seats to change their tune, so to speak. So I met with a couple people, walked around, had a slice of pizza, and I get a text from one of the dealers that was there. It's actually a breaker, and the number was given to me via text. Of course, like any other card show, the cell service really stunk there. But anyway, I went down to the booth, and sure enough, the gentleman, the boss, wrote me a check for $7,500 and away went my Mike Trout rookie card and all his other buddies that were in that box. Um, Took a picture of the check on my mobile deposit app and deposited the check back into my bank account. So, in the course of about 3 or 4 hours, I took $5,000 cash out and then deposited $7,500 in check form back into my account. So that's a victory uh, in of itself, right? So remember now, that's not the big part of the story for me. That box was the means to an end for me. So let's talk about these Nolan Ryan cards. Started filling out holes in my set. A couple of the 70 playoff cards that Nolan Ryan's featured on. A couple of the 69 I needed, and then of course all the other stuff that I did not have. I'm going to share a screen again here, real quick, and just to give me some visual aids. So on the Beckett OPG, um, you have your Nolan Ryan. I think my current Nolan Ryan count is at 881 cards. So anyway, there's again everything was in there, right? We had discs, blank back discs. We had Isolay's discs. We had Kellogg's from the '70s. We had all those um, crazy. Um, let's see here. What else do we have? We had all those leader cards because, like I said, Nolan Ryan led the league 7 times in strikeouts back in the '70s. So he was on leader cards constantly. Highlight cards like the 75 tops highlight, fanning 300 batters 3 years in a row. The minis were in there, all that stuff. So on and on and on and on this thing goes, this collection. And so the good news is one of the good news is of this thing is during the summer I sent in a bunch of my cards that I've had forever to SGC. I think I submitted 20 cards. 20 cards it was, yes. And this guy comes back, this rookie that I bought from my friend Joe, comes back as a 5, slabbed as a 5 from SGC. So we're talking about $5,000 outlay, 7,500 immediately returned to me within hours, and then 68 Owen Ryan rookie card, and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other hundreds of other cards. Now, show you how obsessive this guy was. I have a scorecard here from. Hold on, Grandpa has to put his glasses on. I have a scorecard here from 1989. Okay, clearly a Nolan Ryan scorecard, right? And I have a 1989 Juan Samuel card, clearly a 1989 Juan Samuel card. Well, if you flip over the Juan Samuel card, it's got a Nolan Ryan back. And if you flip over the Nolan Ryan card, it's got a Juan Samuel back. So that's the depths this guy went for his collection. I have a stack right here of cards, probably 100 cards, where they don't register anywhere on the Beckett OPG. A lot of them, again, are promo cards. This is from Baseball Card Magazine, which is looks like the 59, cards back in the day. Player's Choice 92, sports cards, Nolan Ryan, don't know what that means. A 69 tops version of him in a Texas Rangers uniform. These guys, I have no idea what the heck these guys are. They're just cards that were made for Nolan Ryan, a little set. Again, regional, there's Superman with Nolan Ryan, nose, 300 wins, 5,000 Ks, 6 no hitter. Obviously, this is out of date. There's a gold card of Robin Ventura getting his tail kicked by an old man. Another gold card of Nolan Ryan. Just again, it goes on for days and days and days. Nolan Ryan in a tuxedo with a nice little champagne thing going. So everybody wants that Mike Trout rookie card, right? So I looked at if I'd kept that Mike Trout rookie card, this deal would not have happened because I didn't make this deal for the Mike Trout. I made this deal to get all these Nolan Ryan cards and Mike Trout, the Millville Meteor from South Jersey, and unabashed Philadelphia Eagles fan is the one who put this Nolan Ryan collection in my hand. So it was a big win for me, and I'm very happy for that. And I didn't say this to boast or brag, but it's something I've had on my mind since I made the deal. How do I explain this, and how do I tell people this? Because it really is, to me, it's the perfect story. I'll sell new cards to pay for old cards any day of the week, and really, this one made me happy. I guess it affirmed my faith in vintage collecting, and even though it's not deep vintage, still the '70s, and even into the '60s, obviously, I love my vintage. That's all that's all I can say about that. So, anyway, thank you for listening to this one. This was a boring one, I know, but it was just kind of old school, new school. Mike Trout versus Nolan Ryan, and in my mind, Nolan Ryan wins out every time. And the Coos Man, of course. Don't forget about the Coos Man, because the Coos Man played his part in this. Thank you, Jerry Koosman. And yeah, that's that. If you need any Nolan Ryan cards, knock on my door. I probably have duplicates of most of his cards. So that's that. So I think I pretty much hit everything there. Hopefully, you enjoyed the little story. I promise it didn't take much research, right? It was just me telling a story about what happened. So every now and then I'll do that. I have some stories to tell of stuff that's happened throughout my life in the sporting endeavors that are pretty cool and pretty unique. So hopefully down the road I'll be telling more of those if I can get my act together. So anyway, thanks for joining me this week in my journey back in time. If you have a comment or suggestion, or if you want to come on the show, just drop me a line over here at ThatSeventiesCardsShow at gmail.com, at 70scard on Twitter, or drop a comment over there in YouTube, down below, as they say. Music on the podcast is provided by Mango Safari. And as usual, be safe, be nice to each other, and enjoy collecting. And more importantly, please enjoy your collection. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.